Okay, folks, we're going to be probably getting ready to start this off in about maybe a minute or two. And we want to thank you, first of all, for coming to the ARC Forum. And I, myself, Tim Shea, Senior Analyst here at ARC, thanks you for coming to this session in particular. Let me just check my watch. So they asked me to tell you to try to turn your phone on vibrate. Obviously, you can leave it on. I wouldn't want you to tell you to turn off your phone. You want to stay connected. Try to, as the session develops, please try to, if you have any questions, please try to write those down so we can, at the end of the session, during the panel discussion, we can get you your questions answered and get the discussions going. Another thing is that the SeaWorld event tonight, it's the Antarctica. It has to do with penguins. I've heard it's pretty good. The buses will start leaving outside the ballroom foyer outside at around 6:30. But if you want to get a good seat, I'd get there a little bit earlier. I usually get there about 6:20 to 6:25 myself. Let's see, I'm trying to think what else. Create your questions. And then if you have a chance, there's on the phone app, you can you can do a survey and rate the session and the speakers. If you would, that'd be great. So we have some really great speakers, which I'll introduce after I'm done. But I'll just kick it off. I have a presentation here, and all the presentations will be available probably a couple of weeks after the forum is completed. You'll probably get an email with a link to view the presentations. I'm gonna probably go through mine relatively quickly because we have a number of great speakers here, and they also want to have good time for a healthy panel discussion. Looks like we're gonna have a pretty good audience attendance, and hopefully we'll get some good questions and back and forth discussion and things like that, and have a healthy dialogue and maybe brainstorm on a few new things or confirm old things or whatnot. So to kick it off, my name again is okay. Just give us as we I guess we're a little bit ahead of the curve. Oh, okay. I haven't touched it, Sal. Well, that'll give people more time to come in and okay, there we are. Okay, great. So the title of the session, for those that maybe are not aware, is Leveraging Industrial Internet of Things. I kind of always say it's short for IIoT, and operational analytics to realize digital transformation in oil and gas. The primary focus of my presentation will be more on sort of upstream and midstream, but we have speakers here from downstream as well, so you'll get a full stream, to use the BHGE terminology in the presentation. So basically, I don't know, for those who are not familiar, ARC is a worldwide industry analyst, market intelligence, strategic advisory services firm. We have offices in all the major hotspots throughout the world. We provide market intelligence, consulting, various system and selection criteria, migration strategies, things like that. And we've been operating for over almost 33 years. So it's a long time, and we've got I think a pretty strong brand in the industrial automation and infrastructure space. Basically, what I wanted to highlight is obviously there's a lot of volatility in the oil and gas industry. We had this kind of the low for longer period there for about 2.5 years or so, which was, in my estimation, in long term going to be a positive, even though it was very painful for a number of people with layoffs and things like that and bankruptcies. But the oil prices have somewhat stabilized. They're not going to return, in my mind, to $100 a barrel, maybe not forever. Who knows? We'll see. But a lot of the operators and independents are operating on oil trading in the 40s and 50s, which in my mind was a good thing, because that means that they're going to be continuing to journey down towards digital transformation. I think that's a very healthy thing for the industry. Obviously, overall for the global economy and people that use energy, it's a very good thing. And you can get this information offline. I'm going to just hit the high points. The general trends that we're seeing in oil and gas are obviously, the advancements in the fracking and the increasing the number of frac zones and things like that. Using intelligent completions, we're starting to see that. In terms of enhanced oil recovery, we're moving well beyond. We're getting into a lot of tertiary techniques using some advanced polymers and some other things, and they're continuing to try to optimize production, because we're probably going to be seeing slightly fewer large projects in the future as oil prices kind of continue to trade, and that we think over the next few years, $50 to probably $70 or maybe even $80, in the next 2 to 3 years is my preliminary forecast. So to quote the CEO of Schlumberger a while back, he felt that during the downturn that a lot of the claimed cost reductions by the operators and folks like that was really coming out of folks like their hides because of the huge amount of layoffs they've had. So he felt that back then that there was not as much focus on really optimization. It was more about just cutting heads. And I think now we're in the period that I think that things have stabilized. I think there's a real focus on digital transformation, optimization, and that's why we're all here right today to talk about how it's going to benefit the oil and gas industry. This is kind of ARC's definition of what industrial Internet of Things is. And, I don't want to get into the specifics, but I like what the gentleman at Praxair said the other day about, it's really about, what does it do for your business? And don't get hung up on whether it's the internet or anything like that. It's really about transforming companies' operations to move towards operational excellence. And again, this is some of the components that ARC would say that kind of comprise, industrial Internet of Things. And again, you'll be able to get, more details. I'll be happy to, speak to somebody after the session and give them my presentation if they'd like. But in the interest of time, I'm just going to continue to move forward. Obviously, we believe that, none of this makes any sense unless there's some real business value. And this is some of the highlights here are based on ARC's research of a number of years in terms of, what people see as the potential business drivers for this, because otherwise it's just technology for technology's sake, and that's just, in my mind, it's just really a fool's errand. Again, some more, highlights of what are the real value propositions. In my mind, it's really reducing unplanned downtime, improving production, recovery rates, doing more with less, because what you not only have is with the great crew change and then exasperated by the layoffs, you've also got the need to integrate all the different, you got production data, reservoir data, drilling data, trying to get that all integrated and try to make it into, make that data more actionable. And I think is going to be very helpful in the industry to lower the cost per barrel, which will, if oil prices go up a little bit, they'll make more money. And if they don't, they'll still make some money. And that's good for the overall economy because it's cheaper gasoline prices, cheaper airline tickets, and a number of other things. So it's the benefits to the industry as well as the greater economy is real. This is just kind of try to highlight some of the applications that we see that are benefiting today from analytics and digital transformation. Obviously, I think when I first we started looking at this myself, obviously I looked at rotating equipment as being a low-hanging fruit, I thought. And then I looked at well monitoring optimization. Obviously, there's probably a lot of things they can do with drilling optimization they are doing right now to increase ROP and things like that. And obviously, the whole idea of asset integrity and asset management is really a huge area that companies are, it's a very capital-intensive industry. And so the more they can, get a greater return on investment, return on assets, and then obviously supply chain management. And I'll talk a little bit at the end about blockchain and what the implications are for that area. This is kind of an example of what we see as, you got an oil rig that's, has data being monitored. It's being sent to the cloud, and then they perhaps will notice some information from a water injection pump or any other kind of pump or compressor that might be on a platform. That data, makes some analysis, and it basically says, hey, look, you need to replace a certain seal or a certain part, and that information is set ahead of time so that you, obviously, again, you want to reduce the unplanned downtime, which is the biggest bane in my mind for companies in a lot of energy-intensive industries, not just oil and gas. Here's another example of sort of how collaboration can be enhanced through industrial automation and enhanced communications and things like that. I think that's really critical about, again, tying together those different departments that are dealing with different data languages and standards and things like that to try to, to compress the time to first oil and, and maximize efficiencies. I don't think that, I would never say that there's anything what I call a silver bullet. I think that there's going to be some challenges, and I think the biggest one is what we've heard it talked about in the presentations and the keynotes already, is the issue of culture. People embracing change, and let's face it, most of us, including myself, don't necessarily like change. But I think if we learn to embrace it, particularly in this area, I think we're going to all do ourselves in the industry and the greater economy overall a great deal of benefit. So it's obviously technology in my mind is half the battle. The other half of the battle is getting people. You need evangelists at your companies that will see the benefits and will need to really drive it through. Obviously, you need leadership to buy in. Usually it's better if you can get it from the top down, but I think you can also get it, from the top up as well. I think you really need a company-wide collaboration. As some of the challenges, obviously the biggest one we've been talking about at this show is really dealing with cybersecurity, some standardization, and that's an issue. If you look at subsea, not even talking about digital transformation, just the ability to standardize in a lot of those projects, documentation and equipment and things like that. It's going to help cut out costs and make companies more nimble and agile. And what we found, at least me personally, and I'm sure as ARC as a company, we find that this whole industrial automation, digital transformation has greatly increased the need to develop strong ecosystems of technology partners that may possess technology expertise. In some cases, there's many companies that provide both technology integration expertise and how to integrate all these systems together and make them work efficiently, but they also may contain domain expertise. We've heard earlier in one of the sessions at one of the keynotes that you can have a bunch of data scientists, but they don't know what that means. That data means for a pump or for what's going on at a wellhead or something like that. Then the efficacy of that effort is going to be greatly diminished. So you need to have, in my mind, strong technology partners to make it all happen. A little bit about the industrial edge. I think there's other sessions here that have probably highlighted that bit, but I just wanted to kind of touch on it and say, in my mind, that you've got the cloud. That was the big thing initially, and then the edge came out, and everybody was going to the edge. In my mind, I think it's going to be both, depending on the application and some of the issues in terms of latency and some other things. I think edge, how much data, what type of data is being analyzed, it could be handled probably better at the edge. And then in some cases, if the latency is not there and you need higher power and analytics, then the cloud. So I think you're going to see, eventually, in my mind, I think you're going to see what makes the most sense, and it'll probably be a combination, a little bit of both. And whether it's public or hybrid or private, that'll shake itself out as well. I'm not going to voice any opinions in that. We have other guys that handle our platforms side of the business that will have their opinions. And a little bit, there should be a slide here from. I guess there's a slide missing. There was a slide I thought about blockchain, but basically I look at blockchain as really kind of a secure distributed ledger, or mutual ledgers, if you will, that basically enable greater transparency, will help develop greater trust, and ultimately remove costs by removing, in some cases, the middlemen or the intermediaries. Obviously, some of the key applications I see, short-term energy trading, and really supply chain optimization, asset tracking are some of the two that we think will have probably the greatest near-term implementation. My gut feeling is that we'll probably see this, develop. We're seeing pilots coming out this year, next year. I think we'll see that continue to develop, and I think as that value is proven out, we'll see some implementations, hopefully within the next 2 to 3 years.